live. Okay. Hi Rajesh, and hi folks who are all on the live stream. So we'll get quickly started. This is like a brand new show, obviously. Fourth umpire with 2IM. I think the first question that must be on all of your mind is who's 2IM here and who's the guest here? Because I think Rajesh has been synonymous with 2IM for quite a while. So just to put that doubt out of the way, I'll be the host on behalf of 2IM today. I'm Avinash, and Rajesh will be our first guest. So we have all heard Rajesh speak hours and hours about multiple things, but I really wanted to know what his life story was, and I thought it would be interesting for all folks out there as well. So we'll keep this strictly away from how to prepare from CAT starting July and August. Those kind of topics would not surface here. It's more about, what was Rajesh's journey and trying to make it clear, interesting on that. Yeah. So welcome Rajesh again to the show. Pleasure to have you. So we have named it fourth umpire. Obviously, it's going to be in the theme of cricket. So let's start quickly with a small power play. Right, all of us have been missing IPL, so I think this is a small filler for that. So I'll be telling one word, and you just need to tell whatever comes on top of your mind when I tell that word. It can be from 3 to 4 words long, not like a long ramble sort of thing. Okay. So we start quickly. Math.
Fun.
Okay, Bangalore.
Mixed.
Pounds.
Sorry?
Pounds.
Expensive.
Business.
Up and down.
Inspiration.
Several. I have several.
Something out. Several.
Ratan Tata is a big inspiration.
Okay.
Tendulkar is a huge inspiration.
Wow. Okay. Super. Money.
Necessary, not paramount.
Teaching.
Fun, passionate.
Cat.
Thrilling. The idea of taking cat is thrilling.
For you or for the students?
For me, thrilling. For students, more they think of it as thrilling, the better it is.
Super. Okay. Thank you. That was just a quick icebreaker session for us to get started. Now we'll quickly move on to the free hit session. So in this session, what we are really going to talk about is look back on your MBA classes or, the entire 2 years, how it was and what were your learnings from that. So I will just quickly get into it. So can you tell me one concept that you learned in MBA that you used while, starting up your business and doing your business for so long?
It would be difficult to kind of distill it down to one. Interesting. I had not thought about the one thing that I learned. The basket of things was fine, but I realized as an entrepreneur that as an MBA student, I was severely into finance and operations. But as an entrepreneur, how you position yourself, how you carve a space for yourself is super crucial. So what do you stand for? What does the company stand for, and how do you communicate what the entrepreneur believes into everybody in the company, the organization, and what the organization stands for into the wider world? Those are things that are super crucial. So the kind of stuff that we learn in organizational behavior and organizational process, kind of stuff that I completely used to ignore, they're crucial. But one thing that I think about frequently, it is positioning. When you're not even segmenting, targeting, but positioning. What do we stand for? What are we about? I think about it very frequently.
Super. I think positioning kind of encompasses a bunch of things, right? It actually talks about the segment and kind of flows all the way down to how your ops and setup also needs to be.
Correct. You can build all the systems around positioning. And what are we about? What do we want to deliver? What do we want to communicate? What do we stand for? Internal positioning into the organization, internal messaging, and how the organization positions itself to students, aspirants, customers, all of that. What do we stand for? So something that we keep trying to define that better and better. The more clearer it is, the more clarity we have about what we are. Not even the numbers, but what we are, definitely.
Right. Yeah, I also think sometimes looking back, it is an injustice to kind of classify or bucket positioning just into the marketing segment by itself.
Correct.
Actually, cool. So on the same lines, can you tell us one favorite case study that you had from your MBA school? Something that you remember, and what your takeaway was? This is like jogging back your memory lane out of your comfort zone. Not how do you prepare for CAT. So yeah.
Correct. It's been ages. So I don't recall specific cases and instances. I recall one thing very vaguely, where a company had to kind of reinvent itself. I don't remember the name, the details. They were about one thing, and then they did a series of reinventions. I don't remember the exact instance. I'm sorry, it's been too long. But I like that struck a chord. Without losing the essence of what they're about, without losing the fundamentals of what they're offering, they had to keep on modifying, and then became a whole new thing. My favorite case study bit, which I didn't learn in college, is a German mid-market thing. I think it's Messerschmitt or something. I don't know the exact name. I keep forgetting the German word. Okay. But there's a word for the German small business enterprise, which is which is taken as a barometer for how the entire German economy works, and taken as a barometer for how the entire European economy works. Okay. And so German companies carve out an expertise for themselves, build on that, carve out one niche. So there'll be a German company that's a master of producing bolts, master of engineering air conditioning valves, so on mobile phone chargers. And then they'll become utterly dominant in that and have compelling advantage in that. And then they communicate that from era to era, generation to generation. And the competitive advantage they have is huge, but they do not diversify and find the same set of customers. The American school of thought is very simple. You own the customer base, sell more into them. Right. The German companies say, I'm really good at this. We'll carve something from that for myself. I'll become better and better and become so good that my competitive advantage in that is compelling. Right. And I'll pass it on. It'll make it organic. The entire organization will reflect that. But they don't diversify, they don't expand. So, that idea, that notion that you build a severely deep competence, and it therefore has a payoff over 25 years, 30 years, that appeals to me.
Got it. Super. I think one last question in this segment, again, maybe difficult. Any thoughts on who your favorite professor was in your B school? Really, you're kind of...
one of my favorite professors was a guy called Sundaresan. He taught management accounting. Okay. He was brilliant. On the day one, he said, I want to know all the chartered accountants here. And then some three guys stood up and he says, no, I'm going to ignore you throughout and I want you to keep your trap shut. And then he said, I'm going to teach accounts as how a company which is suddenly doing business tries to keep its books with. So we'll come up with mechanisms to keep our books. Nothing from the textbook. Suppose you start a company, then organically, okay, what do you keep track of? How will you account for this? How will you plan for this? How do you write down something? And then from there, he took us to double entry bookkeeping and balance sheet and cash flow and profit and loss. And he made the entire idea of writing credit and debit and asset and liability super intuitive. So very often I would go back to the definition and then think about, okay, this is an item called accounts receivable, and that's going up. Is it good news or bad news? In what context is it good news? In what context is it bad news? You can go back to the very definition and made accounts very intuitive. And I was thrilled to bits because I learned nothing about commerce or accounts. And he broke down the entire, all my commerce grads, they had learned rules. They said, credit the debitor and debit the creditor or whatever nonsense it was. So they would do it mechanically. They would do it super quickly. They would know it. And all of us engineers will say, okay, what's happening here? This guy is giving money to that. I owe money to this guy. So what he owes me will reduce. So how does that impact the balance sheet? So we'd go step by step, ask ourselves a series of questions and get to the answer. And because he broke it down like that, I started understanding how much of a powerful tool good accounting is. And then I became fascinated with the idea of sound bookkeeping and therefore then valuing an asset and maintaining, etc. So the account professor was brilliant.
Super. Kind of runs very parallelly with your own philosophy of math as well, right? One is that entire school of template and shortcuts and computational speed versus building
So
into.
maybe that's also why I super identified with it.
Yeah.
The idea was the idea is always to create a natural framework and then introduce whatever is the textbook jargon into that natural framework. And he did it brilliantly. We didn't learn the words debit and credit till about half the course was over.
The CAs must have had a hard time then.
Sorry?
The CAs must have had a hard time, right?
Correct. They started appreciating what he was trying to do because they knew the whole thing. But for them, it was an eye-opening experience. They learned everything and they had to relearn everything. And then for some of them, it fell in place even better. This guy was that good.
Okay, awesome. Now we'll go into the middle overs. Kind of, this is your chance to be little more slow and boring and have longish answers as well. So there's just one question on this. So can you just take us through your journey from your first day of MBA to this minute? How has it been? What have you done? What are good things that people must know? Your learnings along the way and stuff like that.
First, I was a super raw B school aspirant. I pretty much took up CAT for two reasons. One, I knew that I didn't want to do post-graduation in engineering. I properly was very average as an engineer. I studied from an IIT. So the college was good. They tried and they didn't succeed. So I was extremely borderline unhappy about how my engineering journey had gone. I enjoyed myself and played and learned, picked up a few friends and all that. But as an engineer, I was mediocre at best. And I knew that the CAT I could crack. I had prepared for JEE. I knew my math. I knew my verbal. I thrived in multiplying and dividing. And the data interpretation questions of 25 years ago were all about speed math. And if you give me 35.2 into 11.3, I would do it. And I would approximate it. I would know what percentage increase, percentage decrease, the whole shebang. So in many ways, this game was geared to my set of strengths. So I knew I would clear the exam. And I knew I didn't want to do post-graduation engineering. That apart, thinking about how an industry is structured, how an entrepreneur, what is an entrepreneur's motivations? How do you think about profitability? What is the idea of marketing? I knew nothing. I had never worked in any place. I had never been paid for anything. I had not completed a project where I got money. Nothing. Nothing. I was absolutely raw. Back then, the IIMs picked on talent and they said, look, I'm getting this guy in. We'll teach him whatever needs to be taught and we'll send him out somewhere. And because I was super math strong, I told myself that I'll naturally be in finance or operations. And operations was very routine, not rocket science. Finance was interesting, but I never got captivated by stock market finance. Several of my colleagues and classmates were natural investors. They were punters. The idea of how much something is worth super appealed to them. It didn't.
Was that the time of .com bust or?
It was a little after .com bust. .com bust was 99, 2000. We entered in 2001.
Okay.
So we were the batch immediately after the .com bust batch.
Okay. The Hangover was there at that point of time?
If it was there, I didn't know that. I didn't even know .com bust. I barely knew what Y2K was. I knew nothing about investing, about stocks, about something going up and down. Nothing. Okay. As luck would have it, my internship was in marketing and I completely enjoyed it. I enjoyed my marketing internship. And then I came back to campus and I told myself, look, I enjoyed my marketing, but I'm still a finance guy. So I did quite a few courses on finance. So I was in between one and the other. I was not fascinated by stocks and markets. I was not fascinated by, I didn't know what M&A meant. I had done a course on valuation, but I simply couldn't understand that there could be an entire industry called M&A, mergers and acquisition. I thought if I didn't understand that companies could be bought and sold. I could understand that products and services could be bought and sold. I simply didn't understand at a intuitive level that companies could be bought and sold. It was not there in my dictionary. Okay. As luck would have it, I tanked up something like 25 to 30 interviews in 3 days. I think I still probably hold the record in IIM Bangalore. So I got shortlisted by every company. I had a good CV. I had good CG. I had a good internship. I was an Aditya Birla scholar and all that. So I got shortlisted by everybody from McKinsey, BCG, Bain wasn't there, to all the banks, and then through all the general management companies. And then I tanked interview after interview after interview. And so the guys outside would give me a super pep talk and say, dude, this company will take you if you keep your trap shut. Just go there and don't blow it. And I would go there and blow it. So sometimes I find it super ironic that I train people to attend interviews. And so I blew interview after interview after interview. At the end of my third day, I got placed with ITC. And then several of the guys who had disappointing placements, they immediately started applying. And I was so harebrained that I didn't think that I should apply and try to get another job. I was like, look, this guy is giving me a job. I have a job, and I went. ITC, I spent 6 months in UP, in Lucknow. I was based out of Lucknow, and I traveled to Eastern UP, not even Western UP. Eastern UP is a tough place. It's a really tough place to live and survive as an MBA. It's Hindi heart belt. And that's all. I had a blast being a sales guy. I would go on cycle, two-wheeler, and all kinds of stuff. I would go and travel in tempo traveler, all of that. And I did my training stint. I enjoyed myself. At the end of the training stint, I was posted to Orissa. And it was like the HR guys had a beautiful rule. They asked all of us, are you enjoying yourself? And everyone who said, look, I'm having a blast, was given rotten postings. Then that guy said, look, this guy is enjoying himself. He won't quit. So we were long too, and I didn't even realize that. Some guys were savvy and said, look, it's all right, but I really want to be in a metro. They got the metro posting. I told them, look, I'm loving my job. And I felt super peeved that next morning I quit. Within 3 days I quit. I attended an interview. This guy said, look, I'm giving you a job. And I came. I still remember my father said, look, please quit after I collect the order. It was a company in Chennai. So late in the evening, he went and collected the offer letter. And then he said, look, I have the offer letter. Now you can quit. So I quit. And luckily, this is a company called Irevna, which did back office equity research for several firms. It was in Chennai. It was complete. That's when I learned most of my finance. There was a couple of guys who did model after model after model with Excel sheets. Then I realized how numbers could be put on sheets. What is the link between balance sheet, cash flow, profit and loss? How do you value an asset? What are the different dynamics? I was working with a dedicated team with which was tracking European software and services. I never took to the stock market thrill, but I was good at what I did. And these guys made me an offer and said, look, join our equities team in London. And then I joined the equities team. I was a flunky for 2 years. Then I became a lead analyst for the 2 years. So my job was to look at companies, look at stocks, look at their valuation and say, look, this stock should be bought, that should be sold.
What is a flunky?
Flunky is someone who does the charts. So I'll tell you a beautiful story. One of our guys was an executive assistant to an oil company CEO, like a $60 billion company, like a Schlumberger or a large company. And then he joined our banking team. And then we asked him, how was your journey from that side to this side? He said, my job as an executive assistant was to look through financial reports, cull out the meat of it and give it to my boss every day.
Okay.
My job was to go through 60 pages of reports and write it down in 1.5 pages and give it to the CEO so that he gets a snapshot. I really enjoyed that. So I came over here. And here, it's my job to write the remaining 58 pages. So that's what a flunky does. So buy this stock, sell this stock. This is the key thesis. This is the theme. This is where this industry would pivot on. That's what the analyst does. And after the analyst picks the theme, draw the chart to justify that theme, draw the analysis to say, yeah, he's right. Do fancy 2x2 matrix stuff and make the pitch, write the report. That was the flunky's job. You learn the trade with the flunky. I'm not decrying it. You can't become an analyst without being a good flunky. So I was a flunky for a good 2.5 years. My analyst loved it because every flunky wants to meet clients. Every flunky wants to be the boss. Every flunky wants to be the client-facing guy. And everyone wants to know what's happening in the trade and what's happening with the stock. Why is it going up? Why is it coming down? I was super agnostic to all of this. I liked report writing. I liked maintaining the model. I liked writing investment theses. I liked reading tons of stuff on market research and economics. So I was the ideal flunky. I wouldn't butt my nose into client meetings. I wouldn't go to the trading floor and irritate people. Okay. And I would sit and stare at a desk, look at my models and do this. In hindsight, somewhere down the line, I should have realized that I was not cut out for the industry because I would be the analyst for 12 stocks, come to the morning. So if I don't know if you've seen trading floors, the traders work with 6 monitors. They'll have Bloomberg.
What do they do with that? I've always wondered when I see all these movies on Wall Street and all these things.
For the life of me, I don't know. They track indices aggressively. They track trade volumes aggressively. They need to be on top of information flow. If there is a rally, they need to participate in it. If you don't participate in it, you get bypassed, your positions get built up. So I would spend like a week not seeing share prices. Somewhere down the line, that should have been like a flashing signal saying, look, you don't really thrive on this. So
Yeah,
I didn't invest. I didn't put money in stocks. I've never bought a single stock in my life. So that thrill of share purchase, something going up, coming down, I didn't have that.
This
But
goes
my
right
bosses
in the
quit.
face of SIP SAE campaign then.
Sorry?
This goes right in the face of the SIP SAE campaign, I'm telling, for
Correct.
all the people. We believe that stocks is the way to wealth, right?
Correct. So I'm out. I've never, maybe I don't even say I don't have that belief. I just didn't participate in that thing.
Okay.
So around about that time, the 2007-8 crisis was a big turning point for me. I got disillusioned with my job.
Okay.
I got peeved at the amount of, once I started understanding the industry, I started getting wound up with it. When I was a flunky, I was doing my charts. But once I realized that I started publishing reports which moved markets. So I know that I can publish a report and the stock will be up 2%. And if I say underperform, it will go down 2%. Got nothing to do with me. I was in a big bank which had a legacy. An idiot publishing that report will move. But the banking industry feeds these ideas into you, saying the analyst moves the market. And so you don't know where you're a participant and how you can kid yourself that you're a mover. And when the bust happened, when Bear Stearns went bust, I was thrilled. When Lehman went bust, I was like, yeah, this is happening. I was a natural bear market guy because I didn't understand why stock prices were going up all the time. And I was so annoyed when company after company after company was held up by the Fed, that one thing after the other was bailed out completely. And then round about that time, I realized that the whole freaking thing is rigged. Or at least I got the belief that the whole thing is rigged. Okay. And inside information and knowing the right people and massaging this and writing the...
Sounds so much like the Big Shot movie. Have you seen it?
I have seen the movie. I have seen
so much like that day. The day when
I don't remember details, but I have watched the movie. Yeah.
There was one guy's character which is exactly like this.
Okay. Yeah. So the CDS spread, what happened in subprime mortgages, it's all crazy, silly stuff. And what I was doing in equities was a microcosm of this, in the sense that there was a lot of borderline gray area which these guys were abusing. Left, right, and center. Every single bank, every single hedge fund. They'll talk to you about asset allocation and Adam Smith invisible hand, and try to keep a spy on the CEO to see if a deal is happening. So it was classic pseudo intellectualism. With that one dose of, look, I'm the king of the world. So they had to have all the analysts believing that they're market movers. So sorry?
Like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, definitely. It gets to you. It gets to you in unseen ways. But I didn't enjoy the core of it. The thrill of the trade, I simply didn't have it. So it was so simply phenomenally easy decision to quit. It was a really tough decision to quit based on the money I was being paid unseemly amount of money for no good reason. But hey, they're paying me, and I would have gone and bargained and said, look, I need to get paid more. Because that's what you do. If you don't do that, then you shouldn't be doing that. And so I was in the industry, but it was stupid money for no good reason. I always liked teaching. So I came back to India and said, look, one fine day I quit. And then I became a teacher. For the first 5-6 years when I was a teacher, I did tons of classes. But a sense of what the business model is about, what do we stand for, how do we carve our positioning, how do we go from X to 10X to 100X, that wasn't there. Those are the mistake years, 2010 to 2014, 15. Those were the wilderness years. We did tons of classes. I would do 20-25 hours per week, left, right, and center. I used to take classes in multiple locations. I would just go and take classes on anything and everything. I enjoyed the class taking part. I still believe that my comfort level with teaching comes from the tons of classes I did those 5 years. But we did not have anything remotely resembling a vision for what we should be about and what we stand for. How will we grow? How will we take the biggies? There was no route to becoming the next reasonable sized company. Okay. In 2014, we were close to shutting down because we didn't make numbers. So I had a long chat with Baskar. Baskar's part of the business was still sustainable. The part of the business I was running was like, we were this close to shutting down. We set ourselves some numbers and said, look, if these numbers are not met, we'll shut down. I'll go find I knew that I still had I could write research reports. I can say buy, sell. Okay. Back then I had not completely lost the game. I said, look, I'll do that, Baskar, and I'll take classes for you. I'm relieved. I like taking classes. Making the business model work is driving me mad. Okay. Take classes and I'll get paid. some guy is going to pay me money for no good reason. And this is a good reason I have. So I'll find my peace like this. And that was a decision. And in almost a Hail Mary we went online. I remember I spent 4 or 5 days doing, or 3-4 months doing several things online.
Okay.
And we bought a new camera, lights, we bought a projector. We simply couldn't remove the shadow. We got a guy in and soundproofed our room with N blankets, and we had to be low cost, right? So I went curtain shopping. I went house after house after house and bought all their curtains, or all my uncles and aunts. I put through curtains everywhere because we can't soundproof a room, not at RPNL. So the echo would be high. So we put curtains to soundproof. If you put too many curtains to soundproof, the room becomes freakishly dull. So we lit the room, but we didn't have money to buy big lights. So we did all kinds of funny things.
Proper garage style startup.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we said, look, I was super taken in by the idea of a base presentation and teaching on top of that.
Okay.
I always had super clarity and pig-headed vision on how the teaching had to be done, how the pedagogy had to be defined, how an idea has to be broken down. You'd be incredibly tough to come and pitch a new idea of teaching to me. I would shake my head and do my own thing. I was super convinced that my method was standout best method for teaching the idea that I was teaching.
Okay.
I was super convinced. So I was unshakable on pedagogy. I was super clear on this is how this should be taught. And I was super clear from day one. And so I left a lot of students hanging because I said, this is the journey. You have to do this. And they'll feel like this is too slow. You're building from zero. I want to jump and take the next exam. I'll be like, look, hang in there. It'll happen. And so idea by idea, I knew that I had to have a base presentation and then juicier ideas on top of that.
Okay.
We simply couldn't remove the shadow. And then I was doing a bunch of Hail Mary research at the end of 3 months, this close to shutting down. And then I discovered this idea of screen capture. And it was like, I know how people who have astigmatism, and then they don't realize they have astigmatism. And then at 2021, they're diagnosed with astigmatism. And then they put that glass in. And then they look at the floor and then they look at it and say, okay, this is a mosaic floor and it's not worms dancing. This is how the world is supposed to be. And then it just one, oh my God, this is falling in place thing. Super. That happened to me. Once I found screen capture and recording, file size was small. I had no need for super infrastructure for lighting and coloring. And I sat in one room and shot hour after hour after hour of video. Super. So I would stare at a wall and teach. It was super fantastic. Everybody would be stunned, saying, how are you? What you have in front of you is a wall. But I would be animated, thrilled. I was stunned at how much I didn't need students to teach. and then we got onto the bandwagon, and then we did a bunch of things online. Our bigoted things about how we should teach, they paid off very slowly, but they paid off. That's where we carved out what we are about, what the teaching philosophy is, why first principles are important, why you shouldn't game the system, why we shouldn't go after shortcuts. Over time, I got used to the idea of having a team, having a bunch of people who subscribe to my view. And then I started subscribing to several things that they brought to the table. Mm-hmm. So for the first 7-8 years, it was a very super lonely journey. Okay. And then I completely thrived on the idea of a team. And I started enjoying the fact that there were a bunch of guys who had similar ideas who we were working with. Mm-hmm. And then we broke through with CAT. I always wanted to teach to school kids. My idea of getting into the education industry was school kids. So CAT was, in some sense, a route to reaching there. So it has helped me teach because I've done so many hours of teaching. Mm-hmm. But all those years of teaching and building the online product is what we're trying to rejig and redefine with Pivo, where we're saying, hey, we need to go and teach dramatically differently. And that's what we're doing in the last 2 years. But one thing that scares me every now and then is the fear of becoming flat, fear of running off templates. So which is why sometimes I push something right to the last minute, because if I rush through, then I pick up a template and tweak it. You can create a mock CAT in 3 days. You take a mock CAT, modify questions, you're good. Mm-hmm. But if you say, look, I'm not doing that, I'll create 34 new questions in quant. There's a beauty to that. There is a product integrity to that. So I'm paranoid about becoming flat, which is why we keep on reinventing the product. I think that's super crucial for teachers, for anybody. Sooner or later, you'll fall into templates and then you become flat. Yeah. And that has been the fear that has been driving us for the last 2-3 years. And I think that fear is also based on PyVerb.
Right.
PyVerb has given us that fear.
Got it. Super. I mean, a good classic journey of both ups and downs. I think it will always strike a chord. So moving on, I think we're just going to almost enter the last couple of sections, right?
Yeah.
Quickly on DRS, if you join today as an MBA student into IIMB, what would you do? How would you do? What would your approach be? How would you spend your time, expectations, all those things?
I would take courses over a larger variety. Wouldn't knock myself to finance. I would have done more marketing courses. That matters. I would have had more clarity about what I wanted to be. I would have had a bias towards an industry. I would have put more things in context. I said, look, how is the education industry going to involve or learn each of these concepts? I had no notion of which vertical I wanted to be in. Mm-hmm. It turns out I always wanted to be a teacher, but I didn't think of it seriously when I was doing an MBA.
Okay.
And so I would have had a lot of learning with that context in place. Mm-hmm. And I think that I've taken more value from the course with that, with a clear bias towards the vertical, which I didn't have.
Super awesome. I think that's pretty much it. We are going to now go into super over, which is essentially audience's question. So we have a couple of them coming. So we'll quickly start with Sherlock Cumberbatch. So is it okay to take an MBA without a lot of vision?
It's all right. Completely fine. I've taken an MBA without vision. I've done my first job without vision, second job without vision. I've been an entrepreneur without vision. I don't know whether I have any clear vision even now. Fine. So vision is a fancy overarching theme. You can say, look, I have a vision to be an employee who delivers value to my employer, someone who never lets down a customer, someone who turns up every day and puts fight. That's a good vision. It's a fantastic vision to have. Sometimes something draws you out and then you feel like you should be doing that. Then go towards that. But otherwise, don't chase a vision if you don't have one.
I think the earlier ones are more of what we would traditionally call as values, right? Like I need to perform well and with integrity and all. Super. I think Ashirwad Lima has a specific question. Sir, what struggles should freshers be prepared for?
In the MBA journey, see, a lot of our guys with experience are going to draw on their experience during case studies. They're going to say, hey, marketing like this is tricky. You will lose customers if you increase prices. I've seen this happen. The idea of a context really helps them. Say, look, I worked in technology. I can tell you that a project where even if it is not growing well, changing midway is a disaster. You somehow make it work. You can't change the team. And they know that because they've seen a team change and the whole thing get destroyed. So they're going to draw on their experience aggressively. Sometimes you just have to keep quiet and listen and say, okay, maybe this is true. I don't have a background on that. What you should compensate with is loads of enthusiasm and be the willing flunky. And then you learn from there. By the time it's the second year, it's a more level playing field. But the first few times, the other guys will have experience to draw upon, which you don't do. So you listen more.
Got it. I think the word for the day really is flunky only. Cool. Super. I think one last question, slightly going into the CAT thing. Is it okay to prep for MBA entrance at 27 to switch fields?
Yeah. See, when we guys graduated, the average experience was about 1 year. About 70% of the batch was freshers. Now it's the other way around, probably more aggressively. It's 80% of guys with experience. So if you finish an engineering degree, which is the incumbent degree, you're probably 21, 22. You get 4 years, 5 years experience, you're 26, 27. You're not going to be dramatically different from the talent pool that's available there. Guys are on average going to be 1 year, 2 years younger to you. You don't feel like the oldie in the batch if you're 27. And so you several experiences, industry experiences that you have might be mixed. You might be a techie who has worked on pitching a product. So it's technology marketing. But obviously, if you're shifting to technology sales and technology B2B engagement, a slightly different version, it's fine. But if you want to be an investment banker, then you need to learn finance and valuation completely. Your previous experience is not going to lend to that. But even if you want to do that, there is a learning gap that you can bridge. It's very much possible. I've seen guys switch fields after graduation. So it's very much possible. So nothing holding you back.
Super. I think that kind of brings us to the end of the session. We have already overshot time by like 6-7 minutes. So thank you so much again for your time. We have quite a bit of questions on MBA and preparation, but I don't want to take it up because obviously you have spent hundreds or thousands of hours explaining it in different YouTube videos and stuff like that.
Correct.
I think on a closing note, guys, we are planning to have this session maybe once every fortnightly on Thursday. So this should be a recurring thing, and we'll have more guests coming in who are from the industry. If you have more interesting questions that you want to know about their journey, their life that is different from this, please, you can comment on this and we'll take it up the next time onwards. Right?
Wonderful, Avinash. Thanks a ton. I quite enjoyed myself. It's the break from the routine is brilliant. So thank you so much for putting this together and then having a crack at it. Sure. Thanks, guys.
I think the last thing just to mention, guys, is we have a discount that is going on. You can always refer to the comments if you are interested to pursue any of our courses. Yeah. Thank you. See you, folks. Have a good night.
Bye. Thank you, guys. Bye.